Wow. I just realized I did the whole spiel and I wasn't live. So that was fun. I was like, why does it say people are waiting? Damn, I had everything else set up too. I'll do a real quick intro and then we'll get into it because I know people have been waiting for 4 minutes and I don't like being tardy. So embarrassing on my part. Don't worry, there's no one in my room to have caught that I was talking to no one. Welcome to Outstanding Crowdfunding Outreach. I'm Megan Ross, and I've been the head of creator success at Seed&Spark since 2020, aka freshman year of the pandemic. While we're waiting for others to join, hopefully they're still tuning in. Feel free to share where you're watching from in the chat. I'm in Austin, Texas currently. Very warm here. I did a little joke while I was talking to no one that yesterday during the workshop, I was dressed like an extra in a Nancy Meyers movie. And now I feel like I'm dressed like Lydia from Beetlejuice if she worked in media. I am not dressed for the weather in Austin. Anyway, a few housekeeping items as we wait to kick things off in just a minute. There's a 30-second delay between when I'm speaking and when you're hearing me. So please make sure when you're asking questions or commenting, it makes sense out of context. Don't just ask me to clarify what I've just said because just is relative and I'm up here living in the future. This event will not be recorded, but if you RSVP'd, you will get this deck as well as bonus resources in the follow-up email that comes in usually a day or two. And you can also check out, we do these workshops pretty frequently. So if you are missing this one and getting the deck, you can follow along. That doesn't make sense because I'm talking to the people who are tuning in. Anyway, feel free to ask questions in the chat at any time, but just know the Q&A won't start officially until the end. Same rule as before, please make sure you provide context, relevant details so I can help most effectively when I revisit those questions later. And finally, thank you to our sponsor, the Tennessee Entertainment Commission. While I was talking to no one and not live, I went on this whole spiel about how great they are, but I'll do that again. Their vision statement is to increase high-quality job opportunities for Tennessee's creative and technology class through the promotion and implementation of programmatic initiatives that reinforce the state as a relevant market for the production and development of multimedia entertainment properties. As someone who's a filmmaker in the South, I am a big fan of resources like them who help make filmmaking accessible to creatives all over. So definitely if you're in Tennessee right now or moving to Tennessee, utilize them for your creative needs. So a little more about me right before we get started. I'm a writer, director, producer, and comedian, aka middle child. I didn't go to film school. I actually studied business, so I learned on set. And I do have a background in marketing and advertising, so that conveniently translated well when I had to promote my comedy shows and films. So essentially, an outreach plan is marketing and advertising for your crowdfunding campaign. So let's dig into it. Let's bring the, I'm gonna do this little, nope, I'm gonna do this little guy. Okay, righty. Hard truth, if you build it, they won't come. This isn't that baseball movie I can't remember the name of. So without an outreach plan, you could have the most beautiful crowdfunding campaign in the world or the best project of your life and still not successfully fundraise. So to break through the noise, you need a strategy, and that is what we're here to do today, to figure out your strategy. So these are questions to ask yourself before you even begin to think about your crowdfunding campaign. 1, are you crowdfunding for everything all at once? Everything at once or in stages. This will change how you communicate with your audience. Keep the twists and turns for your story, not your marketing plan. So if you're planning to crowdfund multiple times or just this once in order to finish your film, you shouldn't let your audience know up front. Like, this is for pre-pro through post, or this is just for distribution costs. Also, who's your audience and how do they like to be spoken to? We teach Art of the Pitch workshop and the classic Crowdfunding to Build Independence workshop. And those are good workshops for you to know, figure out who your audience is, define it before you create an outreach plan, because your outreach plan is dependent on who your audience is, because you want to meet them where they're at. Third question, who's already on board? Like, what team, audience, partners have committed officially? Friends don't let friends crowdfund alone. I will repeat that frequently because my first crowdfunding campaign, I pretty much crowdfunded alone, and it was torture while working a full-time job and doing a monthly comedy show. So we'll go into more of that in the next slide. And the next question, how much do you already have pre-pledged towards your goal? So you got to talk about your crowdfunding campaign even when you're not crowdfunding. But this is a good way to build up momentum before you launch, because if you do this right, people won't get sick of you even before you launch your campaign. They'll actually be looking forward to your updates. Who knew? Alrighty. So then following slides, we're going to talk about the tangible things you need to prepare. So just think of this as your pre-production for your crowdfunding campaign. So as I mentioned, friends, don't let friends crowdfund alone. So really look at your teammates. What are their special skills? Who's the best at writing long emails? Who's really good at making graphics? Who's a social media whiz? Who likes doing research and dissecting data? Also, what is their commitment cap? This is a no judgment zone, but really encourage your team and yourself to be realistic about how much time you can all dedicate to working on this campaign now in the pre-pro phase of your campaign and when it's actually live, because it can feel like full-time work, especially if it's one person doing it. And just know that the workload won't be equal, but it all should be additive. It's okay if not everyone does this exact same amount of work. It just matters that everything gets done and everyone's splitting up the tasks in one way or another. Now, email strategy. This is going to be the biggest, what you're going to spend your most of your attention and energy on in your outreach plan. So email is about 175% more effective than social media. It's really true. Social media only converts at 1 to 2%. I mean, think of it like you're competing with the algorithm and, assuming you're doing organic, don't recommend doing paid because that is very minimal, very unlikely to convert because you're getting click-throughs, but that's not guaranteeing donations once people click through. So while personalized direct emails, on the other hand, not that mass BCCs, not newsletters, convert at a rate of 20 to 30%. Again, find a format that works well for you. There's no right or wrong way to build your email list. We have a recommended system in a blog post that you'll get in a recap email. But as long as it's legible and you're able to update it regularly, you do you. So first, we recommend adding everyone you know, even if you might not reach out to them. You never know if 3 years from now you'll start working on a project that would be perfect for your fifth grade crush. Then start expanding. So how to do this? One way is a survey. Circulate a Google Form survey. Those are free to create, to hear directly from your audience before they even know that they're your audience about a topic related to the project. And then let them know you're a filmmaker who may reach out with a project related to this interest. So an example here, our wonderful crowdfunding perfect human being, Brie, who's currently on her honeymoon. For her one of her projects, she added over 300 emails to her email list in 2 weeks when she circulated a survey about asexual representation in media and how the ace community was feeling about it. And that led to her having this amazing built-in audience already when she had a web series to crowdfund for about asexual representation. Start a supplemental newsletter. So if you make horror movies, start a horror movie review newsletter. If you make content with Latinx female leads, start a Latinx woman in media newsletter. Take your niche and curate content for folks who also care about that thing. Then once you start promoting your own work, it doesn't feel like it's coming out of nowhere. So you're now a thought leader in that space and people will trust your taste and not be like, why is she randomly talking to me about this one thing? Host events with an email RSVP. So events are a really great way, and we're making our way back into IRL events. This is a great way to get people who care about a thing in one place, if it's virtual or in person, and you can collect emails from the RSVP list. So, for example, a web series about women freelancers hosting a networking event for women freelancers. I have a real-time example. Tonight, I am doing a private screening of my latest short film here in Austin, cast, crew, friends, and fam. And while a lot of the people who have been invited are on my current email list, I encourage them to bring plus ones, and I'll have a sign-in sheet where it will be optional for them to sign up, and then I'll be able to add more people to next month's update and hopefully bring in some supporters. Attending events, virtually or in person. Try to put yourself where your audience hangs out, be that at a concert, networking event, etc. Bring business cards or have your links handy, and don't forget to follow up after you meet the person. This is that piece of advice I feel like is the biggest miss for a lot of people. I feel like it happens to me too, where you exchange cards, you have a great conversation, and then you never talk to that person again. Also, we'll be talking more about ways you can network later on in this deck. Alrighty, everyone's still awake. So social media. I mentioned I worked in social media for a while, so this can be uh, useful, but also, and it could be a thorn in your side. But anyway, so social media we mentioned converts only at 1 to 2% of supporters into contributors, but it can still move the needle for you. So Bree's last campaign, that percentage meant 16 people, which isn't nothing. So a strategy approach to social media is pick a platform. You don't need to be everywhere all at once. That was the second attempt to make that reference. You just need to be where your audience is. Again, we talk about this in the crowdfunding workshop, and we have a lunch and learn on social media for crowdfunding that you'll get in the follow-up email linked as well. Make sure the platform you pick fits your lifestyle. If you hate using your phone and your audience is on both Twitter and Instagram, either assign a teammate to Instagram or accept that you'll just focus your current efforts on platforms you more naturally use already. Also, don't just shout into the void. A beautifully curated feed is meaningless if no one is seeing it. The operative word here is social. So get involved, talk to people, engage with them, answer questions, ask them yourself, join in on a hashtag community, discussions, promote work that isn't yours by resharing rather than organically posting everything. Also, does this platform make you hate yourself? So your mental health is more important than any of this garbage here. So if social media negatively affects your mental health, fuck it, skip it. We wrote a whole blog post that you'll get in the follow-up email about ways in which you can ignore social while still audience building and crowdfunding if social isn't for you. Now, this is a question we get a lot. So should I make an account for me or for my project? And we've broken down, the pros and cons, why to do it for you or your project. I'll give an example. So for my first short film, because it was my first crowdfunding campaign, I was building a new audience and also bringing in an audience from my comedy show that I already created social accounts for. I decided I wanted a dedicated account to keep it separate from my accounts, and that I would just try to drive people over to those new accounts. But now on my fifth short film, I've managed so many and created so many social accounts and have had to like retire them or still keep them up and feel like, should I be posting? Even though we're way past distribution. So for my current one, because it is not only a more personal project, a little bit autobiographical, but it's also directly linked to some of the things that I'm doing in my day to day. So this short is a proof of concept of my Sundance Episodic Lab pilot. So I'm usually talking about it on my personal platform. It's about friendship making, a topic that I talk about in my own channel. So I decided I'm just going to promote this short through my own social channels because I have that built-in audience from the last 10 years of doing comedy. I hope I haven't been on social media that long. That would be depressing. I think I have, actually. That's sad. And I decided to have like a home base for my film. I will build a website once we get into the distribution phase. In the meantime, I have other resources that I've been sharing with my audience as like sort of a landing page, and I'll get to that in a bit. Alrighty. Assets. Assets is plural here. Real, make more than one image. You can't just have one image and be like, I'm gonna coast on my entire campaign on this one graphic. You can't. People are gonna get bored of it. So a solid logo, poster, key art image is great, but if it's the only associated on-brand image you share for your campaign, people will think you're just posting the same thing to them over and over again. So build templates you can plug new info and images into. So there's a consistent visual brand. Pay attention to dimensions of different platforms. Include a CTA URL on each. Um, I do not get paid by Canva to praise them, but this last um, fundraising effort for my film, Canva has been a godsend because they create templates in the social media specs for pretty much everything. Like I've used them not only for social assets, but tonight for my screening, I created a little postcard with info on how to support my campaign and connect with me. And I put our key art on there and our logo, and you can print right from Canva. This was 33 bucks for like 100. I know they do not pay me to say this. I really feel like I should get a Canva sponsorship. And yeah, if I didn't mention, include a call to action or URL on each post. Usually what I like to do, depending on the platform, is do like a bit.ly link, and then along with the image, because well, I don't do Facebook as much, but when you share a link to Facebook, it just drives it, you get like you disappear into the feed. The algorithm doesn't really pay much attention to organic links. So I usually try to do an image with a link in the copy. So no, I did not pay for, oh, I know I said I'd answer questions later, but I think we can kind of go with while we're going. But I did not pay for Bitly Pro. I currently have the unpaid Bitly. And so far I haven't like hit any of my I guess whatever the like free trial, the free version probably has some like limits, but right now the unpaid Bitly has worked for me. On Canva, I do have Pro, but I got it because they were a sponsor of the ATX TV festival that I attended. So I got like 1 year for free, which was amazing. No, definitely not too specific of a question. Definitely relevant. Because you have to think about all these extra costs for your outreach plan. I mean, like I had to account for printing those postcards. Um, and yeah, so that's assets. I am going to drop a link to give you sort of an example of, and I'll show the full toolkit later, but um, when I created my assets for my latest, keep in mind this is not a crowdfunding campaign. This is we're doing a crowdfunding campaign later, but in the meantime, this was just to kind of spread the word. But I created assets, dropped it into a Google Drive folder that was shareable. I labeled it by platform, and I let people access that through a social toolkit, which I will share later on. That makes it really easy for them on figuring out how and when to talk about your project. So let's talk about key art. So this is actually the top one is the first key art that for my first short film. So when you can, emphasize faces. So for the top one here, we did a photo shoot. This is the protagonist. It's a dark comedy. So we were trying to go for a little bit of an uncomfortable woman. Limit the amount of text. This will come up in the distribution phase where if you have to deliver to certain platforms, they usually want versions without text or with very minimal text. Every graphic should imply the tone and genre. So for an uncomfortable woman, we took this picture of Robin, our actress, visibly uncomfortable, and then I had a great artist illustrate it for us, and Louisa V. Canal, if anyone knows her. And then she did the typeface as well. So it really set the tone for our project even before we had like any other visual assets. Like we didn't have anything shot, but we were able to sort of like introduce the look and feel of our film through our key art. So really pay attention to that. This is one from Bree. The bottom one is from Bree's series Brains. And so we've got, I'm assuming Bree was the protagonist in that. And so we've got the cast around her, really funny, like hands coming through that gives the tone. And there's blood on it. And like, okay, we know what she's going for here with the brains and kind of like bloody typeface. Alrighty. So now we've talked about the inputs of outreach. So let's talk strategy, aka what your plan should be. Um, I'll continue to answer questions at the end. I promise I'll get through all of them. Alrighty. Definitely make a schedule. I am a very type A person, so like I do this for everything anyway. But really, really for your comms and your outreach on a campaign, you're going to want to have this. So you'll want to take into account pre-campaign communication during your campaign. If you're using the Seed&Spark platform, we have a built-in feature where you can send updates to all of your followers and pledgers through the platform, and then post-campaign communication, which you can again use our platform to do that, or download the CSV and reach out to your pledgers and followers separately through, if you want to do a separate newsletter post-campaign. Make sure you leave room for new elements. Learn from your crowd. What are they, reacting positively to, or what are they more passive towards in your campaign plans? If things aren't working that you had planned, like anything else, shift gears. If people really respond to one, category of posts that you're doing, lean more into that one. Determining how often to post on social, it really depends on the platform. We recommend scheduling evergreen content ahead of time. TweetDeck and Buffer, those are good, and I believe you can still use free versions. For Facebook, you can use Facebook. You can schedule right in there for free, or Buffer. For Instagram, you can automate with Buffer as well. They don't pay us to say that. How often to send email? We usually recommend once during the first week. And then make sure you're clear with them on how often they're going to be hearing from you, and then once a week later if they haven't contributed, and then definitely at least one more time to those who haven't pledged in the last few days of the campaign as a final plea. And the next slide has some examples of a crowdfunding schedule. This is broken down by time of day. I have one buried in my Google Drive, but I broke out by platform. I did copy. I would link to the drive. I basically put everything in there, so that if it wasn't me scheduling the post, someone else had access to everything and knew what they were um, required to post. So maintaining momentum, the biggest thing here is to not just post updates on how well your campaign is doing. Don't just count down like this percent there, this percent there, because people tune that out pretty quickly. You can definitely do that, but it needs to be balanced out with other more interesting supplemental content to train people not to ignore your updates, but to look forward to them, that there's going to be new information each time or something else that they can hear from you about. So, and one of the biggest stats we tell people that 90% of successful crowdfunding campaigns will hit 30% funded in their first week. That's why it's really important to get people committed to pledge to your campaign before you even launch, so that within the first couple days, if you hit your 30%, like you already are set up for success. Reminder, you'll get this deck, so I'm not going to read every single thing on it. Um, so writing great emails. I love writing emails. I am that person. Nevertheless, she followed up. Um, so for emails, you want to structure them like small talk, a personalized message. They all should really be personalized, but it doesn't need to be more than a sentence about your connection to that person. And then you want your thesis statement. What are you making? How are you involved? Are you the writer, the director, the actor? How do you want this person you're emailing to help? And you should mention concretely that you're crowdfunding. Also reveal the what's in it for us answer. So either list the incentives you think this person or type of person will like the most, or make a specific appeal to what you know they want out of media that your movie will deliver to them. And then also offer a gracious way out. I do this in almost every email I send. So if how else can they help? Because not everyone has the budget to commit to a crowdfunding campaign. So pre-write some social media language. I'm going to share that social toolkit later on for people to copy and paste, include links to your social, encourage them to forward your email along to others. So usually when I reach out, no matter like what I expect from the person, whether they have money or not, I will say, like, here are ways you can help me. Like, one is to pledge to the project, the other is to amplify. And I like leave it to them. Like, this is, I consider these like equal weight, even though I really need the money. But I don't want to pressure anyone if they don't have the means. So definitely encourage them to even forward your email to someone they think might want to support. And then sign off strong. End on a high note, make it personal to you, make the call to action clear, and thank them in advance. Just be polite. So putting the social back in social media. So remember the 1 to 9 ratio. For every one self promo post, there should be 9 not directly self promotional posts. So you're really trying to build up the world of your project beyond just promoting the campaign. Curate content people would want to follow you for even before they know who you are or what you make, and just make sure it's related to your work. Focus on engagement, not shares. Don't pay for it. We really don't recommend paid social for crowdfunding campaigns. It doesn't pay off. Include a link in every post. I mentioned this earlier with a call to action. Make your lowest incentive a social shout out and make an easy graphic template. People are more likely to reshare something with their name on it. And also make these individual. So don't group thank yous because that's less personalized. As a reminder, I will answer questions at the end, so keep sharing them as they come up. So motivating your team to share. So you'll obviously want to make it easy for everyone. Pre-write social copy instead of leaving it for chance. Write out what you want people to say, and they're more likely to actually do it. Make individualized content. Just don't just send out general posts or group pictures, especially for actors. Give them something just about them, featuring them. People are narcissists. I do comedy. I'm like inherently that way. And we're motivated by self-interest. We're all like this. It's okay. So what I ended up doing for my first campaign is I created some video assets where I interviewed the lead actors, so they had their own sort of content to dish out during the campaign. Schedule reminders with clear CTAs. So whether you automate reminders by scheduling emails to go out ahead of time, or you just keep a calendar, know what you need people to do and when they need to do it so you can stay on top of things. So here is the social toolkit I mentioned that I created for my latest project. And as you can see on it, I have links, bit.ly links to everything that they really need. I have built-in copy. I have links to the graphics, kept it really simple. I'll probably expand this when we move into the distribution phase, because I'll be talking more about festival screenings or impact campaign screenings we'll be doing. But for now, this worked for pre-production and, as we're in this kind of quiet phase waiting to hear back from festivals. Alrighty, press and partnerships. So this one is one you don't want to forget about. I think a lot of people don't realize that, maybe they have fear of, being ignored or rejected by press or partners. But like, honestly, like the worst thing they can do is ignore you or say no. Definitely recommend coming up with a list of potential publications and partners. Make that a separate email list and find a specific writer's name. So usually you can find sometimes under the contact page someone who might be close to, like, oh, this person covers film, or this person covers like crowdfunding. That is a thing. There are people that cover crowdfunding campaigns. And because a general info inbox usually is less likely to get responded to. Organize these partners by theme. Is it an outlet or partner that's going to be most interested in your project because of your team's demographics? For example, my first short film, I applied an inclusion writer, so that meant it was an all-woman BIPOC cast and crew. This latest one, I did the same thing, all-woman BIPOC and queer cast and crew. So I am going to be targeting publications that cater to that audience, or is this does this outlet or partner maybe care more about the subject matter? So for example, friendship. I hit up a lot of friendship therapists in my time and read a lot of friendship books. So I'm been slowly building the contacts that I think will have an audience that would support a project like mine. And this will change how you frame your ask, whether they're interested in supporting you based on your project's demographics or your demographics, or interested in supporting you based on the subject matter of the project. Also keep an eye on similar projects, who's writing about them, what outlets and authors, would they be willing to make an introduction or share their contacts? Sharing is caring. Many creators are happy to share a contact or make an introduction if you just ask. Many nice creators. Reach out early. It can take a while to get to the top of someone's inbox, so don't just make an ask a day before you need something. I usually try to give a 2-week buffer and then follow up after that. Um, Alrighty. Okay. How to think about it. So this is all the following slides going to be about getting into the right frame of mind on outreach, because outreach can sometimes feel icky. So we always stress this in all of our workshops pretty much, that crowdfunding is all about audience building first, fundraising second. You're a storyteller. Crowdfunding is done best when we are thinking about the audience first and then thinking about the money second. We teach this in crowdfunding to build independence and art of the pitch. As with everything else on your page, ask yourself, if I was sent this campaign page or video or list of incentives and did not know the creator, what would I want to know first? What would encourage me to learn more and to give them money? What would encourage me to give more money? So the answers to those questions should guide your design of this page. We also stress this a lot, drop the word donate. This, because we want your audience to think that they're not just sending money to your project without getting anything in return. You really want to stress what makes your story and your process unique to them. Why does this project matter to your creative career and to the world beyond that? How can you use crowdfunding as a way to communicate and celebrate that? They're getting something out of this. This is a two-way street. It's a mutual relationship. While they're not getting shares in your film, but there's a reason why we have an incentive system. There's a reason why we have an 80% green light, because we believe that that's kind of that cutoff that you'd be able to deliver on what you promise the audience, and you can get creative with the other 20% of your budget. So definitely think of this as a partnership with your pledgers as well, and try not to use the word donate, because unless you have a fiscal sponsor, they can't write it off. Teamwork makes the dream work. So if you're in this together, everyone wins. Like I said, friends don't let friends crowdfund alone. Build your team just like you would for your film. Have pre-pro for your campaign just like you would for your film, and you'll be set up for success. And questions. Okay, so now I'm going to go through. Okay, email template we should follow when reaching out to press or organizations. I would take the so you're going to get this deck, and I would take the template we have on the earlier slide and just customize it essentially. I think that's a really good way to just, I created templates for for different publications and different organizations based on the ask and the theme, because I also was asking some people for in-kind donations, like to give food for the fundraising events. So I would take like this sort of strategy and just customize it. You'll get this deck for press and partnership purposes. Um, how to combat inboxes getting crowded. Um, that's tough. I think I would check in with the person you're trying to reach to see if there's a better way to get in touch with them. Like if it's someone who's a lot like busier and has an assistant, sometimes it's way easier to go through the assistant. Maybe this is someone who is quicker to respond to text or DMs on Instagram. Like I would just try to find a way to get to their best method of communication. If you're worried that they're not someone who would be checking their email or responding quickly. What should you do if your campaign does not hit 30% in the first week? So we have a section of our blog that has a lot of tips exactly on what to do to combat that. And that will be, let me find that. Ready, set, launch. Okay. If you go under the ready, set, launch section of this blog post, there's a lot of relevant topics, the desperation phase, maintaining momentum. If you don't hit your 30%, that doesn't mean you're not going to be successful. It just means you have to sort of pick up the slack a little bit in your next 2 weeks. Your fourth week, if you're doing a 1 month campaign, you'll see a spike. You'll have to be more active, especially with the timeliness of we have 1 week left. But if you are not able to like, hit that 30% in the first week, that just means you have to make up for it in the second and third weeks, and make sure you're finding new people to reach, and people are still engaging with your content. And you may have to change your outreach strategy, like if they're not engaging with the content. Alrighty, cool. We got a tip from Alexicography Films. I probably said that wrong. Sorry. It's end of day for me, and I am losing my voice. If you make a Facebook page and make your Insta business account, you can use Facebook's free business suite to schedule for Instagram for free. That's awesome. I actually did make my Instagram a business account, that because it gives you data. I like sort of, it's like 1 week, maybe 1 month. Um, but that's a really good tip, especially to get around, having to pay for a scheduler. Creating Facebook pages for your projects. As we talked about earlier, it really is all about one, your style. Like if you are comfortable creating a separate Facebook account, also you'll get the stack. So you'll be able to reference the pros and cons of creating a separate account for your page versus just using your page. But again, when you survey your audience, you should also ask them what platforms they use, how do they consume information, because then you'll be able to tell, like, oh, my audience isn't on Facebook. I don't need a Facebook account. This is just sort of an extra thing for me to manage. Anyone? Okay, I noticed in crowdfunding campaigns that they will give incentives like invite to the private screening, but how is that allowed if you're planning to submit to festivals that have premiere recs? Very good question, because I also wondered that with my first short film. So you are allowed to do a private screening. The big festivals, like, they basically don't consider a private screening as a premiere. A lot of times these private screenings are for feedback, or they're, wrap party, cast and crew. So while you may be screening your short or feature ahead of submitting it to festivals, you just have to make sure that all of the language you use and scheduling the screening um, is it's clear to people that it's private. Like for me right now, I use my email list to invite people directly. I didn't post about it on social, but I did, like, say to my on Instagram, like, any friends on here who do want to attend the private screening, DM me for deets. So I'm not making it public knowledge. The screening, it's not a public screening. It's not ticketed. It's free to attend. It's also yeah, there's no like Eventbrite for it. So like you can do a private screening, and that can be for feedback, that can be just a screening for cast and crew and friends and fam and donors, and that will not interfere with your premiere rec, because when you go to submit to festivals, you will say that do have premiere recs. For example, like I submitted to South by Southwest, and they I don't know if they require a Texas premiere or prefer it, but even though I'm doing a screening tonight in Austin, it's a private screening. It's not open to the public. It's not, that information isn't publicly out there, and that does not count as my premiere. And it doesn't interfere with those rules. So you're good with doing private screenings without getting, screwed over for festival premiere rules. 30% goal not being met in the first week. Oh, okay. So yeah, so if you go under the ready, set, launch, um, set, launch section of this blog post, you will find a lot of ways for you to essentially build up that momentum, make up for not hitting the 30%. Maintaining momentum is a good one. I'll drop that one. You'll get these also in the follow-up email. I want to see. Yeah, that's a good one. Desperation phase. This is usually like last week if you're far from your goal. Oops, that was just the name of the. Hold on, let me copy the link. Any other questions about outreach? Essentially marketing of your project. Oop, I'm back. Um, you can also, email us if you have any questions after the workshop. And I feel like I should have like waiting room music or something. It's so quiet. So weird. Um, let's see. But yeah, you have me for another 10 minutes, so feel free to drop questions in if you have them. If not, you can definitely reach out to me. Um, how long after the campaign ends should you be interacting with the campaign page? So yeah, that is a great question. So for a crowdfunding campaign, so say you're crowdfunding on Seed&Spark, and it's funny because I've been kind of going into I didn't know about Seed&Spark when I first crowdfunded, so I'm sorry to say I used Indiegogo and it was terrible. But anyway, so you can I recommend like keeping up with your audience throughout every stage of your project. So I basically followed up even like a couple years down the road. You're not required to. I would say if you have a stretch goal or if you are crowdfunding for another phase or another project, it's good to hop in your campaign page, post an update, um, and also keep people posted on the status of the project, status of incentives being sent out. So I don't think there's like a standard amount of time. Like you can probably, depending on when you wrap production and post, like 3 to 6 months after your campaign ends, keep things up. But that's not to say you have to post as frequently as you did during the campaign. Like I would post, I think I posted like once a month once I was in production, and then like it'd be like once every 3 to 6 months as I had news relevant to share with them. So really what you want to do is just make sure that, you're tapping into that audience when necessary, you know, especially if you've got a stretch goal and you want a little bit more support, or like letting them know when you get into a festival, like stuff like that. Um, that's just nice to share with your audience. You can also just download the CSV and drop your Seed&Spark campaign followers, pledgers, and followers into like another newsletter, another form of communication, if you don't want to keep going back into your Seed&Spark campaign. Would you recommend companion projects with your outreach campaign, like a podcast about the film or campaign? I mean, that's awesome. Very creative idea. It's also more work. I would say if you find from surveying your audience or talking to them that podcasts are like a medium they consume a lot of, and you have a team in place to do like build record episodes in advance and edit them and turn them out. That's great, especially if it's relevant to your project. But just keep in mind that's a heavy lift, and you might be in pre-production of your project and crowdfunding and building that, doing the podcast, and that could be overwhelming. So just keep that in mind. If you have the plan in place and if you have the resources and the team. If you're crowdfunding in stages, is there a time frame amount you have to wait before you can start another crowdfunding campaign? Is there a time frame amount you'd recommend? Um, no, we don't there's not like a required. I mean, you'll submit your new campaign page. You can use the same URL and just update the details, and then we'll review and approve to launch in the time we say we can um get back to you. But I would say typically like it would follow your project phases. So if you are crowdfunding for pre-production and you want to crowdfund for post, the assumption is there's going to be like probably at least a couple months of buffer time before you're reaching out to that audience. I often see people you have like a buffer time of 6 months to a year because crowdfunding also is intense. It's a lot to do, so you don't want to crowdfund too close to each other because one, that's a lot of work for you back to back and your team, and two, your audience will need some breathing room. So I would say a good rule of thumb is to have like a span of like 3 to 6 months as a buffer at the minimum. Um, and you know, usually that it should follow your project timeline, especially if you're like, I can't finish this project until I get funds for post production, and then that might be a little bit more timely. Regarding the pre-launch, were you actually calling people to let them know that you'll be crowdfunding and ask them to pledge? If yes, what do you tell them to go to the link once it's live? Yeah, so you can actually if you crowdfund on Seed&Spark, your URL will be available for you even before it's live. So once you're approved to launch, that URL will be built already, ready to share. And then you can have people follow before you even launch your campaign if you have a specific day in mind. So in that case, yes, you would essentially be reaching out to people, letting them know that you have a crowdfunding campaign, letting them know your estimated date to launch. Keep in mind that your date to launch is contingent on when you get approved by our crowdfunding consultants. So don't, promise any day that you can't already rely on, because say if you submitted your project the day before, you're not going to be able to, it's unlikely you're able to go live the next day unless your project is perfect and there's nothing we need to give notes on. But so yeah, you want to be communicating with people. You can share that URL once it's approved to launch, or you can share information and let people know that you'll follow up with the crowdfunding link once you're live, which you should be doing anyway. How do I convince folks who don't want to make accounts on new sites that they think they'll only use once to join Seed&Spark to contribute to my campaign? I believe they don't. I think if they own, okay, don't quote me on this because I know we've been kind of changing our process, but I don't, I think they only have to create an account if they want to follow. If they want to contribute, you can contribute as a guest. So that's just something to keep in mind. And if I'm wrong, uh, email me and I will look into that for you. But I'm pretty sure just to follow, you have to create a campaign. But you can, I believe you can check out as a guest. But if not, no, I know you can check out as a guest. But now I got to look into that. I I know some things have changed since last year, and we're now, when we moved over to free to creators. So um but I would say that if they're um against making a new account to follow you, for example, just say that like they're not going to be contacted by us unless they opt in to receive the newsletter. So they'll only get communications from your campaign if they follow it. We're not going to, take advantage of that relationship. Um, Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, we try to serve the filmmaker first. Even though, yeah, people are know of the big ones. I will say we're in the process of creating sort of a one-sheeter about Seed&Spark and all the free resources we give creators to allow our filmmakers and creators to share that information with their audience so that people know like what Seed&Spark is from outside the creative world. So that should also hopefully help people understand like, oh, this is just like a rhymes with in Bendigogo or rhymes with Big Starter. That was lame. All right. Well, we're about to wrap up here. Thanks everyone for tuning in. I want to thank our our sponsor for this workshop series. This is the last one of this workshop series. But we are still doing 30-minute mentor events with Tennessee Entertainment Commission as the presenting sponsor. And the next one, this was just the last like workshop of the series. The next one is with Emily V. Gordon. If you're fans of The Big Sick and Little America, and I will drop in that link. So y'all can RSVP if you're available at the end of this month. But really appreciate your time. Thank you again, Tennessee Entertainment Commission, everyone for following along. Definitely check out our future events, and good luck on your crowdfunding campaigns and your outreach campaigns. You got this. I believe in you. Have a good rest of your evening. Bye.